Yo! So today I'm going to be giving a comprehensive guide to freeboarding in 2023. If you haven't seen a freeboard before, they're a special kind of skateboard with 6 wheels, 2 centre wheels in the middle that spin and that are closer to the ground than the other 4 edge wheels, and because of this you end up emulating the 2 edges of a snowboard and the centre which spins. To someone unfamiliar with freeboards, you might ask, isn't that just a skateboard with extra steps? The answer to that is no, because there just isn't any other alternative to practicing snowboarding on concrete. So if you want to learn to snowboard, but like me, don't live somewhere where there are mountains, picking up a freeboard is definitely a good first step to practicing your carving. However, if you look up videos online of people freeboarding, they do make it look incredibly easy to do, when in reality it's actually very difficult and the learning phase can be very disheartening for people that learn, and so they buy the freeboard and end up quitting after a couple of weeks. I wanted to make this guide so that you could buy the right freeboard for you and then focus on some main principles in order to learn to freeboard faster and get out of the learning stages so that you can get carving hills and really enjoy the sport, because it is amazing. This video is going to be split into chapters as so feel free to skip to whichever section is most relevant to you. Otherwise, enjoy the video and let's get to it. If you're buying a freeboard in 2023, you really just have 2 options. Either you buy a brand new freeboard, which would include the Freeboard 5 or the Freeboard 5X, or you get an older generation freeboard, in which case you would probably get the G3 or the G3R boards. If you're buying new, it really depends what you want to use the board for. I would say the Freeboard 5 is probably more versatile because you can use it at a skate park, you can use it for grinding and sort of slamming the trucks about because they're a lot more solid than the spring ones in the 5X. However, if you want to learn quicker and you want to mostly do downhill carving, then definitely, if you're going to buy new, get the Freeboard 5X. 5X is a bit more expensive and you might want to get the blue springs for better carving. However, they both have the same wheels, which are really good for learning, so you can't really go wrong with either of these boards. As an aside, certain tricks are easier on the 5X, like jumping, doing manuals or doing butters and these sort of 180s, so that's definitely something that you should keep in mind if you're looking to buy one of these boards. If you're buying secondhand, you can get some really good deals now on Facebook Marketplace, eBay, or whatever your local secondhand marketplace is. I would say that you'd want to pay less than $120, and as for wheels, I would recommend looking out for the boards with the blues or the green go wheels, so the green ones or the blue ones, and also make sure to check that the bearings all work before you commit to buying it off someone. If you can't afford to buy brand new, then don't feel bad about getting secondhand, because these are some really good deals, and the DeBlues wheels and the Green Go wheels are really solid for once you're hitting more serious slopes. So once you've got your board, you're going to want to set it up. First of all is the binding orientation. After speaking with a lot of the Freeboard UK riders, I've decided that this is my preferred binding orientation, where you have both pointing outwards because it's much better for riding in switch, and fundamentally that's one of the most important aspects of riding a freeboard well. So if I were you, I would just stick to this configuration and not worry about the others. But if you're interested, there's lots of resources online about snowboard binding angles, so if you want a more personalised freeboard binding setup, then just check those things out. Next up are the centre wheels, and you'll notice that there are little notches in which you can place them, and this will decide how close they are to the ground, which essentially will dictate how much rocker you have. Now, rocker is actually the space between your edge wheels and the ground. You might notice that pro freeboarders will always have their centre wheels at the lowest setting, therefore giving them the most rocker. This means that you have the most space between your edge wheels and your centre wheels, thus lowering the chances of you catching an edge. If you're a total beginner, I'd probably recommend putting your centre wheels on the setting just before the highest. This will make rocking edge to edge a lot easier, and if you want to put them on the max setting afterwards, you always can. Alright, so your board is all set up and now it's just time to learn to ride. The very first thing I would work on is to put the board facing up the hill so that the board doesn't move, and then just practice rocking edge to edge. You'll want to be really in control of which edge you're on, because as you're riding downhill, you will want to be able to transition smoothly from edge to edge. Once you're used to this, you're going to want to figure out whether you ride regular or goofy. The difference between these 2 ways of riding is really just determined by whether you have your left foot at the front or your right foot at the front when riding. Try standing on your board in either stance, and whichever one feels most comfortable, just stick with that one for learning. It doesn't really matter because you'll need to learn both when riding in switch. The next thing I would suggest is trying the same thing as before but going down. You want to make sure that your front foot is really sturdily locked in and not moving, whilst your back foot, you allow it to sort of float around from side to side if possible. What you'll notice is if your back foot is lighter, then it will start to drift out if you lean to one side. It's worth noting that my centre of mass here is over the edge which I'm leaning on and not on the other side here. If it had been on the other side, then I would have caught the edge, and you can see this in the following. What you don't want is to half commit to an edge when you're doing these drifts and then turning back to the edge that is going in the direction of travel. So, for example, if I try and drift here, loose back foot, and then here I go like that, the board will kick you off, basically. Always keep your weight when you're drifting in a direction opposite to travel, like that. So your centre of mass should be over this edge, basically. What you don't want is your centre of mass to go here to the other side of the edge, because then you'll catch the edge. You'll notice in the videos of me spinning here, my back is facing the direction of travel, so this would be called a backside spin. You can also do frontside spins. And I suggest doing a good mix of both and trying to connect them if possible. You can use these drifts to stop if you're going too fast, and ideally, these are the way that you learn how to do spins. Just practice doing these simple little carves with your loose back foot, and then you can join them together into spins quite easily once you're really used to it, as you can see here. So again, the important part is that my centre of mass is always on the opposite edge to which I'm travelling, and that's why most of freeboarding is essentially just a problem of where your centre of mass is, so as not to catch the edge. The last thing that I want to mention, which is related to these things which I've spoken about, is to essentially use partial versions of this carve in order to control your speed when you're going fast. As you see here, I'm using essentially the same strategy that I'd mentioned before, but only doing a fraction of it. And each time I do it, I control my speed a little bit more so I can slow down. And I always use this in basically any of my videos. You can see me using this carve technique, and to me, it's the most important part of freeboarding. So if you're a beginner and you're trying to do these little carves to stop, just remember that they are incredibly important and they're exactly what you'll use to hit some really steep hills once you're used to it. So with the end of the video near, I just wanted to mention some few extra points, like the fact that you can definitely push on a freeboard, although I definitely wouldn't advise it to travel anywhere a long distance, but it's incredibly useful to do. So if you're learning, I would recommend practicing pushing as well as doing little jumps, and you can practice that on flat. Another thing is with protective equipment, I would absolutely advise wearing a helmet and wrist guards as minimum. It's just not worth doing the damage to your wrists. It's really painful if you fall on them, and so just always wear wrist guards. Other than that, I hope that you managed to learn to freeboard, and definitely don't give up in the process. Let me know how it goes if you do, and if you have any other questions or any video suggestions of tricks that you'd like me to explain, then feel free to comment them below. I hope you enjoyed the video and have a good one.